Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another in Naxos's ongoing reissue of Vox catalog. This time, Maurice Abravanel and the Utah Symphony play Grieg. This was, I believe, a two for 3 LPs and 2 CDs at one point in its life, because there was like Peer Gynt and other stuff. But this is some of the more interesting material. You get the symphonic dances, Opus 64, the Bridal Procession from Pictures from Folklife, which is orchestrated by Johan Halvorsen, 3 orchestral pieces from Sigurd Jorsalfar, 2 Elegiac Melodies, and the Lyric Suite, the 4-movement bit of that. And I'm sentimental about these performances because, Grieg, let me just say something here about Grieg generally. Because Peer Gynt and the piano concerto were like unbelievably popular, so much else by Grieg was roundly neglected, and even not just neglected, but Grieg was not taken seriously. He wasn't taken seriously by performers or record labels because he didn't write, extensively in large forms. That is, symphonies, more concertos. Yes, he wrote the violin sonatas, the cello sonata, the one-string quartet. There are a few other things like that. And he was quite good when he wrote in large forms when he wanted to, but that wasn't his thing. Debussy famously, there we go, dismissed his music as sweetmeats filled with snow, light, fluffy, inconsequential. And Norway itself sort of was a little embarrassed by him, I think, for quite a while. I mean, he was their national composer, but he wasn't a big deal like Dvorak was or Sibelius was, So it was a thing. And the record labels themselves, unless they were doing the Peer Gynt suite, the same old stuff over and over again, were not interested in exploring his work in greater depth. So, for example, I remember on Philips, aside from these performances, if you were, living in, the United States, what could you get? You could get Abravanel. There were other performances of the Lyric Suite and a couple other things like that. But essentially, there was this set of Raymond Leppard, I believe, was the guy who conducted them, of Grieg orchestral works, other things, rather than the just the usual stuff. And I had that set. And I enjoyed it very much until one night I got food poisoning while I was listening to it, and it put me off Grieg for quite some time. As anyone who has had food poisoning can attest, it's not a good thing to be listening to some of your favorite music when you're having a serious encounter with the porcelain. Let's put it that way. Anyway, you don't want to hear about that. That's disgusting. But the truth of the matter is that it wasn't until rather recently when Grieg started to become taken more seriously. We had, complete editions of the piano music on BIS and on Norway's Victoria label. And we had, a big set of orchestral works with the Gothenburg Symphony and Nimi Järvi on Deutsche Grammophon, and the orchestral work collections on Naxos and Audita and BIS. And now and the complete Peer Gynt music, which first appeared on Unicorn. Gradually, in the 70s and the 80s, people started to realize that the guy actually wrote a lot of beautiful music that wasn't just the Peer Gynt suite and the piano concerto, or maybe the Holberg suite, you know what I mean? So anyway, all of that is a long way of saying that hearing this re-release has been a little bit bittersweet. Why? Because they were beautiful recordings when we had very few options. But even with remastered sound and whatnot, these are not great Grieg performances. They're not terrible. They're nice. They're decent, but they aren't in any way particularly special. The symphonic dances probably come off best. It's a lively and very intelligent performance. It's extremely well paced. The Bridal Procession is unkillable. The 3 orchestral pieces from Sigurd Jorsalfar, well, they could be done with a bit more panache, I think. The 2 Elegiac Melodies are unkillable. And the Lyric Suite, well, it's pretty until you get to the March of the Trolls at the very end, where it just doesn't take fire at all. Initially, I was kind of interested because it was a slower than usual tempo. you know, with nice articulation. You know, it's Grieg in his Hall of the Mountain King mode, which of course he disparaged and which I love. I mean, I adore. And, but no, it doesn't take off. It really doesn't take off. And then you begin to think back on it and you realize, well, yes, this was nice back in the day, but we have many other choices. So if you're sentimental for Abravanel and his Utah recordings, sure, you can get this at full price. I think it's a little steep, but I'm sticking with the newer stuff. I really am, because they're just better. They sound better. They're fresher, better played. And that's just the way it is sometimes. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.